Okay, hey, this is Dan.
And this is Dan,
We're going to talk about video games for a while.
because we're a bunch of fucking nerds.
Weebs.
So, a lot of people definitely have been complaining lately about the fact that the last year or two of video games have been stale or uninteresting, or there hasn't been a lot of innovation, or consoles and general complaints. And
Lack of
I wanted to
support.
talk about what you, yeah, I know, but that I wanted to get some of your opinions on that. So, in the last year or two, do you think there has been much innovation in gaming?
Uh, Mostly in the indie scene, as always, it seems these days. There's surprises, like Age of Empires is getting an expansion this year, and that's pretty crazy considering it's a 16-year-old game. Um, but other than that, I don't know, like I was excited about like Star Wars Battlefront. But every single feature I wanted from it, they've announced that isn't in the game. So they killed that for me.
Yeah, yeah. Bakers can't be choosers, I guess.
Yeah, but
And
they took out space battles. They took out like the class system. They took out galactic warfare. They took out
they took out fun. Now they're just going to replace it with DLC.
yeah, that sounds like the EA way.
No kidding. And additionally, with the rise of engines like Unity, it just seems like it's a lot easier for the indie scene to thrive, where creators can actually get things done in a reasonable amount of time without teams that are at least 30 people. That there's a number of projects that have come out recently that are 1 to 2 individuals that have been incredibly successful. I mean, look at FTL that was started by 2 guys. That was an incredibly successful game. That is, wow, quite simplistic. I would personally consider one of the best games of that was 2013, and I was overall really impressed. And there's a lot of other examples like that where the indie scene really has been able to produce content that is maybe not pushing the boundaries of visual aesthetics or even gameplay, but really able to produce stuff that's interesting and doesn't feel like the perpetual sequel machine and grinding on.
Yeah, what's nice about FTL too, going back to that, is they didn't just drop support for it either. FTL had two expansions, was it now? Like there was the Ultimate Commander Edition thingy that came out, and there was the micro expansion after that or whatever.
In
Um,
addition to the modding scene too, which was just been
yeah,
absolutely
as well.
excellent.
What I found really interesting with FTL though was, despite the fact that they were one of the at the time they were the most successful Kickstarter ever, um, and despite the fact that they hit way over their goals, the amount of people on the forums and stuff like this talking about how like when people brought up the idea that there should be more DLC for it or more content from the developers, they were like there was this weird kickback where they're like, I don't think they need to. Like we paid them for the game and that's fair. It's like, yeah, but you paid them to develop like the game and then a lot more. Like they should give some more content.
I do agree with you there. I don't think it's necessarily a case of them being owed that, but it's a situation where they were that successful and the game did have room to grow. And I'm just happy they did it. Really, it's not a situation where I feel like it was owed to the community, but I'm happy that they did make the decision
I'm
to
not
create additional DLC.
I'm not sure that yeah, I wouldn't have been mad if it had been not free, but I definitely think the additional DLC was kind of owed. I think a lot of ways when you're buying a game these days that there is almost an unwritten contract with you and the developer that I do expect more content. My purchased if enough people buy the game, I expect them to put more effort into it. Whether it's Counter-Strike continuing to get patches from Valve, or it's Blizzard always puts content into their games, of course, but every time I'm purchasing an in-game item or something like this, I expect it to last. I think this is why TF2 was so successful when it switched to free to play, in that I think people realized that it would stay around and wasn't gonna vanish. Because like if TF2 came out and it had a microeconomy like it did, I mean, some people would buy because there's always whales out there, but I'm not convinced that like I wouldn't have, and I have put money into TF2. And the thing is, like, Valve is going to keep putting effort into making TF2 live. And I think that's if you're going to buy stuff, you have to assume it's going to be around. And I think that's why people are okay with buying stuff in Dota 2, because the game's not going anywhere anytime soon.
I definitely agree with you, though I'm not necessarily as positive about the way the industry has been just readily adopting that, considering the many issues with early access, which I think is somewhat of a symptom of that, which is putting out games with the expectation that support will be given, but it's even before release, where it's not even a situation where, oh, you have a full game and yes, you may receive support. In addition to that, it is you have a non-complete game that you may receive support for. And it's sort of become such an expectation in the industry that I think it is shortchanging both developers and customers, where people just think of games as more of a subscription to a service than an actual product.
So, fast forwarding to this year, since we're talking about a lot of old stuff right now,
Yeah, I know.
what do you think? What do you figure is going to change in 2015, or what are you looking forward to that's going to excite you, change the norm, or maybe is just sadly more of the same?
The thing that I'm most excited about, which is probably not going to be coming down the pike in 2015, but I think the most interesting piece of technology that is going to be coming to gaming is the advent of WebGL and what that means for off-site gaming. I don't think that cloud computing and that kind of software is there yet, but I think many people are unaware of the fact that the infrastructure is getting so much better than it once was. I mean, go look and see what kind of the best example of this I can think of would be Fractal Lab, which is a WebGL product that is on par with some of the tool sets that have been created in the Unity engine and is completely in browser.
The one that you're making me think of straight off the bat is Atlas, Project Atlas. They were supposed to have some sort of really good web engine. They're bragging about, and they're building a game to sell the engine.
Yeah, it's quite incredible considering the fact that after the advent of WebGL, it allows individuals on the browser to be able to have direct access to the GPU, where there is no interface in between it, and there is some overhead, but not a tremendous amount. So as long as you can load things into shaders, you can have quite incredibly fast just performance in browser, which is really impressive. It's definitely not on par with something like the Unreal Engine, or you're not going to be seeing Crysis in browser anytime soon. But
you're not.
It is a yeah, you're not. Well, I don't know. Maybe in 3
so
years.
Surprised.
Yeah, but it does. It's a pivotal step forward for that sort of integrated gaming experience where you drop the hardware dependency, where basically gaming is a is sort of shifting to, as we talked about, that subscription-based thing of that really there's no reason why people can't have their own hardware, but it won't be a necessity. That things like cloud computing will become faster, more reliable, and it eventually will become, in my eyes, the predominant service that really people will be opting to have a cloud computing solution versus a physical piece of hardware, just because of the flexibility.
It's a great sales speech, that's for sure. But what can we see this year that's reflected by that?
Well, probably some shitty demos in the browser, like some physics stuff. Yeah, I know. Exciting
demos.
Yeah, I know that there was some like physics stuff. Somebody dropping a brick into a tub of water, and that got me really impressed, and nobody else.
I'm simply looking forward to a bunch of indie releases this year. I figure not so much technologically exciting, but there's like Darkest Dungeons full releases sometime this year. And it'll release all the content. Super Hot is sometimes this summer as well. You seen Super Hot?
No, I have not.
Okay, so there's actually like a full demo you can play online or whatever from their like initial one, and basically like it's one of the neatest ideas I've ever seen. In that like it's a first-person shooter, but everything only moves when you move.
That's quite interesting.
So like you shoot, and like your bullet doesn't go anywhere, but if you're like moving around, then there's move. It's like Matrix bullet time stuff, but like you can move fast, and it's quite exciting. My friend actually sped run the original. It was pretty funny.
This is
playing a game where the strat is
interesting.
Yeah.
It's
and the
rare
full
to
version
see.
Looking like it's going to be really pretty.
It's rare to see a new concept in the first-person shooter genre. I definitely look forward to
Super Hot. Their ads freaking awesome.
Oh dear God. Yeah, I actually do remember seeing this a little while back. Didn't they release like a Kickstarter Indiegogo campaign about like 6 months ago, 4 months ago, something like that?
I would suppose so. I haven't really followed it too strictly. I just
Yeah, I remember running into this.
the super hot catch line is too catchy. So you gotta keep going
Yeah.
back and checking it out.
I remember sort of seeing this batched in with a few other things like Reflex and the other recent game that that hasn't been released yet. I'm trying to remember what it is, but it's very, very similar to Quake and Unreal Tournament. That this sort of resurgence of the arcade shooter is definitely going to be. We're definitely going to be seeing a lot of it this
Tribes.
year.
We saw Tribes a couple years back now, and we've seen. I mean, Unreal's coming up with another one here. Yeah.
Yeah. So the one that I have gotten interested the most in would be Reflex, just because, well, their netcode is amazing and I love it, and they already have such a decent community backing from it, and there's something you can go out and see now, and it's just refined exceptionally well. While the textures aren't even in it, it feels good, and that's what matters in an arcade shooter. Does it feel good? And while Quake is not necessarily up everyone's alley, it's good to see that there is some resurgence of fast-paced shooters. Just because, what do we have now? Like, in my opinion, the most competitive shooter out there right now is CS:GO, and let's not call that fast-paced by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, that's why I think a lot of people like it, though, is that it's different.
Yeah,
it breaks up the monotony of other FPSs.
It's unfortunate to see something like Tribes, which really wasn't as successful as I would have imagined it to be. I think part of it was because of their microtransactions and how their business model seemed quite discouraging, because it was an incredible.
I think we're moving away from the wider pie of FPSs, though. I mean, you have big franchises like Battlefield and Modern Warfare, but like some of the smaller ones have been really suffering lately in the FPS genre. I mean, NS2 a couple years back didn't do very well. I mean, its community was dedicated but not very big. And this year we saw a massive, colossal failure in Evolve. I mean, Killing Floor had the same number of concurrent players as Evolve did on its opening week. And Killing Floor is an old game now, so it's not what we want to see.
I definitely agree that. Do you think there's a chance we will see FPS as a genre being dethroned by some other genre as the predominant PC gaming Goliath?
I think dethroned is the wrong word. I think the players will still be there. I just think they'll be in a smaller number of games. The variety is definitely shrinking.
Okay, yeah, I probably agree with you there. That just
part
because
of it too is with the longer term support they are providing, there's no reason to move on. In that, like, you get good at Counter-Strike, you get really good at Counter-Strike. Why would you want to go play anything else? Because there's content for it.
Yeah, especially considering the fact that they a lot of them thrive off of the competitiveness of it, where the draw of a FPS is the mastery and the competition and the for lack of a better term, the adrenaline of it. It's the shoot 'em up games, and that's what makes them fun.
That's what got you and I pushing for the top of the Counter-Strike ladder. I mean, that's what it's all about, Dan.
Because that way you can one, say you're better than other people, and two, you can yell at other people over the microphone about some ridiculous bull crap, and it's just fun because you're in this competitive atmosphere with 5 other people, and that it's exciting. And it's not necessarily like a new set of mechanics necessarily changes the core experience much.
Yeah. I found as I've grown older, I find like a lot of games I'm getting, like, I'll pick up a brand new game and be bored by it, and it's really weird to me. But I've played it. I mean, it's a different terrain, and it's different guns, and it's different textures, but some of these things, you've just played them before. So you're just, well, okay, so we shoot some of those guys, and then we blow that thing up, and then we get yelled at by some boss, and then
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The biggest genre that I felt like I was running into that was with the RTS genre, just because, well, I had Brood War, and then everything else was just sort of another RTS, but it wasn't Brood War, and it
that
got nostalgia, and it wasn't, it just felt like, oh, this is the same experience, but subpar.
yeah, but you have to remember, Brood War is perfect.
Yes, and the reality is that you can never remake the perfect games out there. Doom is perfect. Counter-Strike Source is perfect, and everyone should play everything on the NES. Everything's better on the NES. If they put Evolve on the NES, it would have sold like nothing else. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I ran out of words.
You would still be outsold by Counter-Strike Source on the NES.
God, just imagining like one just block of a pixel, and then everything would have to be their netcode. They would have no overhead for anything else.
No. Clearly, you have to add ancient hardware upgrades to ancient platforms.
Yeah. You got to make sure the cartridge looks like a magazine. It's required. Anyway, yeah, it would be ridiculous though. That being said, is what kind of genres and subgenres are you looking forward to the most that are emerging right now?
I'm kind of old school and traditional is the problem. I love my FPSs, and I don't really want much more than Counter-Strike. I'm playing Heroes of the Storm right now as my kind of MOBA Dota. I used to play Dota 2, of course. I'm waiting for the StarCraft Legacy of the Void, Void to get fully out, because I'm looking forward to laddering. I'm gonna, work my way up to gold most likely, because I'm a scrub.
Yeah.
I love RTSs, but I'm not very good at them. The problem is that I'm better than all my friends, so they don't like to play with me either.
Yeah. So I am most interested. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, to just speak, because I'm trying to, think of games. There are 2 RTSs that are coming out. Both of them from ex-creators of old Command and Conquer games, and they looked kind of interesting. But I've seen footage of the one. It's like a weird space. There's one that's a blob race, and there's weird. I don't know. It just doesn't look that appealing to me, which is unfortunate because
are you talking about
nearly perfect?
The I'm trying to remember. I believe I actually have it. Let me see.
It was a stream of
Planetary Annihilation.
Playing it. No. I hate Planetary Annihilation.
Yeah.
I found it to be completely uninspired. There was it's matching units across the factions, so you don't really have Yeah.
I was quite disappointed in it.
Yay! I don't know. Galactic Civilization 3 just came out. I still have to pick that up, but.
So in addition to that, one of the things that I would like to cover though is the the emergence of more multilateral content. The best example of this would probably be things like World of Tanks and other such things where you're actually creating multiple levels of gameplay. Another example would be some of the MMO shooters out there, and basically any sort of piece of content that incorporates multiple kinds of gameplay that interact with each other. And this is, do you have any experience with World of Tanks?
Yeah, I used to actually be part of a clan. We were competitive even. I eventually quit due to balance. And that their game is horribly designed to grind you out, just like all Russian games are. And the balance wasn't so great. So I moved on to War Thunder for a while, and I found that it actually did the multi-combined gameplay better. Once they released the tanks in War Thunder, it was pretty spectacular.
So what are some of your thoughts on that kind of gameplay where you're incorporating multiple different layers, basically?
I think they're great because they give players the chance to do what they need to. So, for example, the problem with World of Tanks was that light tanks are basically worthless once you get to a certain tier. You can't hurt the KV-1s in the lower tiers, and at the higher tiers, it's even more of a joke. Right? So why would you ever want to drive around a light tank, especially in competitive? You should basically just run 10 TDs and 5 artillery pieces. That's what you do because they're the best tanks, right? Mediums aren't even worth it because the speed doesn't make up for the lack of armor and firepower. It was just how the game was. How War Thunder makes this up is the light tanks have the ability, and even the medium tanks have the ability to call in artillery strikes and things like this. So having light tanks running around your backcountry is not a great plan. And the fact that they have proper bullet physics and stuff like that means you can actually, like, even with a light tank, if you shoot someone in the radiator, they can have a bad day. You can light it on fire, etc.
Yeah, the game that I have the most experience with this would be NS2, which had a combination of FPS and RTS mechanics. Though, unfortunately, I think it was mostly hampered by its execution of being a bit obtuse and not necessarily feeling as seamless as I think it could have been.
I think the commander role in NS2 wasn't as diverse as it needed to be as well, in that, like, it got stale quickly. You kind of had a build.
I agree. I think it's a situation where there was a complete loss of ability to control your own units because they were people, and stripping all of that away, so you're basically just marching down an upgrade tree, isn't, in my opinion, necessarily the best way of handling it, where you have nothing to control over that. I understand that they were trying to go in the direction of, oh, you are the commander, you're the coach, you're running the team, but without something to actually physically be doing and mashing keys over, I felt like the role ended up being more of a
accountant's wet dream. Yeah,
yeah, a combination of an accountant and the person that ended up being blamed all the time when you would lose. So it never felt like a very appealing role, and you could tell because basically it wouldn't be everybody rushing to be the one person in the command chair. It would be everyone waiting around until someone took it.
Yeah, I don't play it, but I've always been intrigued by it. EVE Online had their PS4 shooter or whatever, or is it a PS3 shooter? I don't remember. Was supposed to link in with the EVE Online multiverse or whatever. It's another good example of just kind of a cool.
Or we could talk about the elephant in the room and talk about Star Citizen trying to have FPS and flight sim gameplay all tied into one.
Yeah, but I'll believe it when I see it. I feel
exactly.
They're really suffering from too much money syndrome, in that they're just like
feature creep to all hell.
Yeah, it's just like you can't possibly deliver on all this, guys, or if you do, it's all going to be mediocre. Like, I've seen their space dog video, like dogfighting videos, and it's just like it seems really slow, like really slow. And partly because they're not willing to make like concessions that other space games have, where they're like, we don't want particles moving across the stream because that's unrealistic. Yeah, but it gives you a sense of motion. Go play Elite Dangerous, and it feels like you're moving.
Absolutely, I really think that the particles in Elite Dangerous are tremendously helpful because then you don't need an indicator of which way you're going, and you can turn flight assist off and pull stupid maneuvers.
I just wish there was some gameplay in Elite Dangerous.
Yeah, you know what? If we could just put Elite Dangerous's mechanics in Star Citizen's world, we would just all be super happy and just and buy all of it, give it all the monies. I'm really looking forward to see what Elite Dangerous grows into. I have a feeling that it's going to get better over time, mostly because all of their patches have made some improvements.
Well, they have my $60, but they don't have my gameplay.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing, is that they lost a tremendous amount of their player base. And there's just not as many people on it. I mean, I was a part of... I just joined a clan immediately, and then I just realized that it was just grinding, and then... I talked to some of the guys still, and it's just sort of, we're sort of waiting for there to be things to do. Yeah. Which
Spaceballs 2, the quest for more money.
I know. I mean, you have really no reason to fight other players. You barely run into them. It's being such a huge universe, and then when you do, it ends up being that they combat log. That's at least the way it was for a while, where all of a sudden during the fight, they just log out and disappear. And it's just, oh, great. That was anticlimactic.
I remember I used to run around with another guy in Elite Dangerous all the time. And like, I remember one time I just shot him out of like spite. And he was talking to me, and he didn't even like register the missile hit because he like jumped out like it lerped it or whatever, even though it was like 10 seconds of difference. So I mean, stuff like that is extremely unsatisfying as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that unfortunately some of the technical sides of it were a bit finicky as well. Really, I think the limitation mostly for Elite Dangerous was the fact that it was a mile wide and an inch deep. I know I'm just regurgitating some of the reviews of it there, but I really think that hits the nail on the head.
For
That
the love of God,
unfortunately,
magnetic cargo scoops.
oh my God, please, or like just a please, like
Or just let it hit the shield and collect. It's just too grindy otherwise.
I mean, it made
Sense,
the
it was
whole
great, it was
interdicting people
immersive,
into
but-
steel, like getting in front of somebody and saying drop cargo the first time was so exciting until you realize you have 16 canisters to pick up now before the feds show up. It's just you felt like a complete idiot running around there for the next 20 minutes trying to pick up that cargo and realizing you made like a 5,000 credit profit off of it, which is basically as much as you could get spending 5 minutes doing a normal trade run. But yeah, that was unfortunately a bit frustrating.
Plus, some of the obtuse like strategies that wouldn't be so obvious to new players, like elite. Like the best way to gain money as a new player is probably to do rare goods trading. But how would you know that? Because you're a new player.
Yeah, and then anyway,
Moving on from a game that was last year.
yeah, a game that yeah, that's right. It was like released on 2 days before New Year's or something like that.
Yeah, we're
Mhm.
supposed to be talking about 2015. Jeez, Daniel.
God, Dan, you're
I
such
blame
an asshole.
you.
It's okay. You blame yourself. Anyway, unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to cut this one short, but I think this is definitely a topic we should pick up again in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe after we've read like some release schedules, because clearly we're not talking about 2015 games as often as we should.
Clearly, we're a bunch of idiots, and maybe we should redo this. Talk to you later, man.
Yeah, have a good day, Dan. Bye
You
for
too,
now.
Dan.